confusion of being unsettled and forced to discover new skill sets. Birthing something new always involves the sound of crying. And you will know that a baby is alive, like we were just saying, because it cries, because it's converting from one system of substance to the next. And in between every system, he will weep. He will weep when you cut the cord, and he will weep when you take the bottle. And so there are times where we're going through things in our life and we're losing the comfort of something, and we weep and we think this is horrible. Some changes and substance come from places where you have to be weaned. So what I mean is that if you've ever had a child and you've had to potty train them, or you've had to take the bottle or the pacifier, you realize that there is a period of uncomfortability. I was taught about hell weeks when training children in preschools, and I thought, wow, hell weeks. And my director looked me in the eye and she said, yeah, Monette, for 2 weeks, it's going to be hell on you and hell on them. and she was very honest and very right. But I find that wisdom applies to a myriad of things. In relationships, when you're reteaching someone about boundaries, let's say you didn't establish healthy boundaries in the beginning, and now you have to reteach them about healthy boundaries. Think about an arm that is broken, that isn't set properly, and the doctors say, we have to re-break it in order for you to have an arm that functions the right way. There is pain in real growth. There is pain in transition. At the end of those hell weeks with those kids, after I had cried on my lunch breaks and they had gone to sleep crying because I had to teach them how to exist in the new environment they were in that wasn't their comfort of their home, where they could just do whatever they wanted to and be wild as the Taliban. We had rules and order and structure in order for us all to survive, in order for the other kids to learn, in order for me to go home sane. We had to have that. And so I would go through those hell weeks of initiating these kids into the classroom life. And that meant that they were tired and they cried and there was weeping. And there was pushback and there was hatred even of what was happening. One kid did tell me, I hate you, Miss Monette. And I cried. We cried. I didn't cry in front of him, but I knew that I had to be strong because he was being weaned from his old lifestyle. And in order for him to be the thriving child he ended up being, he had to go through that. That is part of our transition. In Dr. Maya Angelou's life, there were many times of transition. One of the things that many people know about her, and she wrote about in great detail in one of her best-selling autobiographies, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Dr. Maya Angelou experienced incredible trauma and sexual abuse. So bad, in fact, that she became mute. And the muteness wasn't a direct result of the abuse. It was a secondary step. When she did tell, something happened to the guy. He disappeared. That did that to her when her family members found out. And so she thought, my God, there's so much power in my words. I shall never utter them again. So when I see her and saw her standing up there on the inauguration podium speaking, I wept as a 13-year-old because I knew how much change and transition had Dr. Maya Angelou gone through to get to this place. From the place where she was scared of her own words for the consequences and repercussions they might have, to the place where she ushered America into a new day in front of the most powerful person at the time in the world and a worldwide international audience. I thought, what did she have to go through? And so as I was getting ready, I started really researching. Now, I'm pretty adept at Maya Angelou. I feel like I know a lot of the ins and outs. I've read many of the books, many, including the cookbooks. And Maya Angelou has been married to a prince. Maya Angelou was working with Dr. Martin Luther King, and in fact had come back right before he was assassinated to continue her work with him. She worked with Malcolm X and all these incredible thought leaders of the day. And you know what they say, tell me who your 5 closest friends are and I'll tell you who you are. So Maya Angelou was a thought leader. She was a visionary. She was a changer of perceptions. And you don't become that person. At some point in her life, actually, she married interracially and was very happy in that marriage until she wasn't. That's the thing I loved about Maya. She never allowed herself, as a pioneering Aries, to be stuck in one place. And she explored and tasted everything that looked delicious to her. And she lived an incredibly vibrant life. We should all be so lucky. But in that, and all the glitz and the glamour and being Oprah's mentor and everything magical that you can imagine seeming to manifest and attract itself to Maya, she attracted it to her. But she had transition. There were times of weeping, as she explains deeply in her book. There were times when she felt downtrodden. There were times when she needed to write about how it was important for her to rise. And so, in tribute to her today, I'm going to take you through a couple stanzas of her famous poem, And Still I Rise, to remind you that as you're going through these transitions and you're shifting your perspective and you're weaning yourself and coming into a new place in your life, there's someone that's been there before that's done it, and that there is pain, and that people might not say the best things about you as you transition, or might not expect the best from you, or might not always be wishing you well. I think Maya really captured that. And it's not about lending a sense of paranoia. It's about understanding the realities of what happens as you elevate. We've spoken about that many times on the show in regards to elevation and how the air, we talked about the air effect with Oprah, and how the air becomes rarefied as you start to ascend and you start to really manifest your goals. And so a lot of people have contacted me recently that have listened to the shows and have been making their dreams happen. And that is the best compliment. It's the best feedback. It's the best everything. I love to hear when you're listening and something's inspired you to kind of really dig your heels down and say, yes, I am going to manifest this. I am getting this. I would like to give a little congratulations to one listener, Miss Allison. So proud of you. So happy for you for your newly manifested transition. This woman is living that law of attraction, and she speaks things over her life. But I want to get back to Maya. So when you're going through that transition and you think, man, I just don't know if anybody's ever been here. I think a lot of us have felt that, isolated and alone. There is someone who's been there. Maya's captured it well. And this is the fighting spirit that you have to have. This is the spirit I've had when some of the worst things have happened to me, whether it was being let go from a situation or a breakup. As I'm walking out that door, this is what I'm saying in my head. And still, like dust, I rise. And Maya Angelou's Still I Rise poem will take you through all of those emotions. And I hope that you feel as triumphant as I do when I say it to myself. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like the moons and the suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springs high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise? Let I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise. This week, as you're going through your day, I want you to remember that. Remember the areas where you're going to be called on to rise. Remember the places where people are going to talk about you and cut you with their eyes. And still, like air, you are tasked with rising. That doesn't mean that there won't be soulful cries. Maya explained it to you in the poem. It is a handbook for transition. That's what I've used it for in my life. A handbook for transition, a blueprint about what to expect from those friends and foes around you that may not always be helping you up in your rising. But that does not mean that you are not called to rise. That does not mean that you are not to embody your dream. That does not mean that you are to stop manifesting and being in your power and speaking your truth. You are tasked to rise. We are here because we're creative beings. We wanted to be here and have this earth plane experience. We wanted to have the challenges, believe it or not, that come with this. Because in order for you to get to your creation, you have to go through the challenge. You have to go through the process. And nobody wants to go through the process. That's the difficult part. That's the part that's uncomfortable. But no one ever gets strong staying in their comfort zone. I think of Maya, and she traveled to Africa. She went there on a whim. She went there to help. She went there for one of her Maya reasons, and she ended up manifesting a prince. That story struck me because as a little girl, we're very cultured to understand that our prince will one day come. And I thought, here is this woman who looks like me, and she actually had a prince one day come, because in the fairy tale books I read, nobody looked like me. So I didn't know that that was a reality. Sometimes you have to see someone do something in order to know that you too can manifest it. We see that phenomenon with race records and various Olympic sports, that something's never been broken, and then you see someone demonstrate it for you, and then you miraculously can achieve it. And then after that, many people achieve it. That's why we talk so much about the glass ceiling being broken for women, because once it happens, it can happen again and more easily. That's what we call trailblazers. That's what Maya was. But in her blazing of trails, and I see her in my mind swinging through forests with machete and creating new pathways that never existed. It was not easy. And I want you to think about that. I really feel like this is what we're supposed to focus on. I want you to think about being in a sweaty, jungly, mosquito-ridden, bug-ridden jungle forest. And I want you to think about the lush greenery around you. And if you're asked to walk in a straight line and there's a root in front of you and a tree hanging in your face, how do you get there? It takes a challenge to get there. No path that you want for yourself, no thing that you have never seen, or no thing that you have seen in your mind's eye is ever not fraught with all those trees hanging in your face and the roots at your feet. You have to cut through and swing. And by the time you're done, you're covered with debris, you're covered in sweat, but you've made a path. So I want you guys to focus on that. Use a little bit of the power of Maya in your week as you go through it to get to the place you want to be. And past this week, use the ability to speak words over yourself, words that Maya prized above all else. She wouldn't even allow people to curse in her house because she said those words will stick on the wall and leave their residue in my home. She would stop people in their tracks. Oprah tells a great story about that. Maya stopping someone from across the room, hearing them tell a vulgar off-color joke, and she escorted them herself out of her home. And she told them why in front of the room, because those words will stick and leave a mess. So I want you to conjure Maya this week and remember that our words are incredibly powerful. When you want something, speak it over yourself. Say who you are. In my heart, I thought I could be a Renaissance woman like Maya. I could do some of those things. Now, have I done all of Maya's things? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what Maya did by being a fantastic example was blaze a trail for me that I could walk behind her in a little bit of a clearer path and figure out what my destiny was. I wasn't supposed to be Maya. I was supposed to be Monette. And she allowed me and emboldened me to become me by being authentically her. There's a fantastic quote that I love by Deepak Chopra. There are people waiting for who you are becoming. Who is waiting for who you're becoming today, listeners? Who is needing you as you transition across the country to work the new job, or as you go through, like some of our guests have, weight loss surgery or weight loss changes? Who is waiting for the person you had to become? And if you look back 5 years ago and you think of the person that you were, you would say, who would be waiting for me? That's something that I want to encourage you with. I had someone call me after a couple shows and say, you always talk about this manifestation stuff and dreams, and I don't even know what my dream is. And I had a boss tell me that I was too this or that to live my dream. And I wanted to explain to you guys that sometimes when that happens, you're dealing with someone who's coming from their own fear or jealousy or. So you want to really listen carefully and kind of discern the spirit of the person that is giving you whatever advice, especially if it's a squelching advice. I grew up with West Indian parents, and so for them, they like a straight road. In fact, in the art show, I did a piece called Ancestry DNA, which you can go check out on my social media page. And it is a woman carrying a basket of mangoes on top of her head. My mother used to take things like that to work when she was a child She would carry food and fruit to the market in her home country of Antigua. And